One of the great pastimes in American politics is finding the scapegoat. Every time those in power screw up, they seek to find somebody to hit with blame and the knee-jerk. Can't wait to get it on the air first without bothering to check the facts. Lamestream media is right there to lap it up and roll the video. In the case of Hurricane Katrina, the devastation that to this day scars New Orleans and a good part of the surrounding region, time has come for one man at the center of it all to set the record straight, proving how ill-prepared so many people were for this storm and how to this day so many fail to understand what really happened. He's a good friend of this program and one who doesn't mince words every weekday on 630 KHOW in Denver, Colorado. Let's welcome back Michael Brown. Michael, you had complete and total authority to write whatever you wanted to for the folks at Politico. And I guess, finally, it must have felt good to get it finally off your chest. But why'd you wait 10 years?
Well, you know, I did the book about 4 years ago, but here's the difference. Politico, yes, and I have to give Politico kudos for giving me free rein. But Politico is, I mean, let's be honest, they're not exactly right of center. They're a little more left of center. So what makes me particularly happy about this article is that people that wouldn't normally hear my story are now hearing the story, and I'm really happy about that.
There are so many things that we could go, but we could take hours talking about it. But there's two things I think that we have to get right up here up front. People blamed you and FEMA for not going in and taking immediate action. What is never talked about every time that comes up is you did not have the authority to do it. There would have had to have been a radical change for you to do it. You were stopped cold. And again, Michael, politics are at the core.
Absolutely. And I think that people don't understand, you know, if for the President of the United States to evacuate a major American city, you have to waive posse comitatus, you have to authorize the use of federal troops, of U.S. Army troops on American soil, and you have to waive the Insurrection Act, which is a Civil War act that says, you know, you can't just come in and take troops and take over, you know, a state. And so we didn't do that, and we have no authority to do that. And I think people have this misconception that somehow, and I think it's the conspiracy theories, all sorts of things about FEMA, that they think we can just swoop in with the proverbial black helicopters and take over an American city. And that's not true.
The other thing that stops in all this is the investigation by congressional Republicans singled out the New Orleans mayor, Ray Nagin. He is the guy who, in so many ways, he didn't order the evacuation. He was grandstanding. He was out there making a name for himself at the time, and yet no one bothered to call him on it. But if we're going to point fingers, let's point one at the guy who ran that city and didn't get the job done, Michael.
And in fact, he's in jail now for taking bribes during Katrina and after Katrina. And I'll tell you, the thing that irritates me the most is that I actually called President Bush at the ranch in Crawford and said, Mr. President, I need you to do me a favor. I want you to pick up the phone and call this mayor of New Orleans and use the presidential bully pulpit to convince him to evacuate his city. And there was this like 5 seconds of silence, and the president said, are you serious? And I'm like, yes, sir, I need you to do that. And even after that phone call, the mayor waited until Sunday, around 10, 12 o'clock on Sunday, to ask his people to leave New Orleans.
Didn't order them. He asked them to leave. Didn't order them.
Right. And then, of course, the storm hit about 5 o'clock that morning. Too late. But for that, Ed, but for the failure of the mayor and the governor to evacuate New Orleans, we would not have had 20,000 people in the Superdome, and frankly, you and I probably wouldn't be having this conversation today.
Do you feel betrayed by the president in any sense that he did not come out and vociferously get in front of the cameras and say, this was not Mike Brown's fault, this is what happened? Because to me, that is still something that he failed to do.
I'm sorely disappointed on that. I was loyal to that administration. I worked hard for that administration. We were successful. I'll tell you a story that's in the book. After the 2004 election, we had 4 hurricanes right down in Florida. The White House Chief of Staff came to me while I was sitting in a meeting in the West Wing and said, you know what? Thanks a lot. You saved this presidency and gave us another 4 years. And I looked at the Chief of Staff and I said, well, no, that's way too nice. And he said, no, if those 4 hurricanes had been really messed up in Florida, we probably would have lost Florida and lost the election.
With about 30 seconds left to go here, you resigned. Was it just the fact that you decided, I'm not going to get out of this? They're going to hammer me, and I'm going to take the blame for this. Why did you resign and not fight then?
For that very reason. You reach a point where, for several years I banged my head against the wall about DHS, about funding issues, and the whole thing, the whole merger of all these agencies. And I had already asked the president to resign back in May, and they had asked me to stay through that hurricane season. So I just had enough. It was time to come back home to Colorado.
I want to remind everybody again that if you go to Politico.com, the article is called "Stop Blaming Me for Hurricane Katrina." Michael Brown did not pick that title. They picked it for him. But I'll tell you, it fits perfectly, because it's time the truth came out, and stop blaming the guy and start really pointing the finger at the people that were the reason why people died in New Orleans. Michael Brown, 630 KHOW, Denver, Colorado. Always a pleasure, my friend. Keep your head up. We'll talk to you again real soon. Stay with us. The Hard Line rocks on.